In a decision that reverberated nationwide, the Supreme Court delivered a powerful message about the limits of presidential authority and the enduring strength of the Constitution. The justices struck down the Trump administration's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, to impose sweeping tariffs on foreign goods, an action that had upended global markets and sparked fierce debate across the political spectrum. In a sharply worded opinion, the court ruled that this was an unconstitutional overreach of executive power, ending years of aggressive trade tactics that had been justified under the guise of national emergencies. This landmark decision reasserts Congress's constitutional authority over trade policy, sending a clear signal that the balance of power must be respected, even in times of uncertainty. For American companies burdened by years of unpredictable tariffs, the ruling offers hope for relief, stability, and a return to more transparent and predictable trade rules that allow businesses to plan for the future. The judgment invalidates many of the tariffs imposed under the IEPA, promising to reshape global supply chains, lower costs for manufacturers and consumers, and recalibrate strained economic relationships with key trading partners. The Trump tariff era, defined by economic confrontation and uncertainty, has been decisively checked by the judiciary, marking a turning point in the nation's approach to international trade. The Supreme Court has drawn a firm line, making it clear that the president cannot unilaterally rewrite trade law through emergency powers, and that the rule of law remains paramount. As the nation absorbs this historic ruling, the future of American trade policy and its global relationships hangs in the balance, with lawmakers, businesses, and citizens all watching closely to see what comes next. Tariffs are special taxes that governments place on goods brought in from other countries. They're one of the oldest tools in international trade, and they play a big role in shaping what we buy, how much we pay, and even which industries thrive or struggle. When a product is imported, a tariff adds an extra fee at the border. This makes those foreign goods more expensive compared to similar products made at home. For example, if US companies buy steel from China, a tariff means they have to pay more at the port. This extra cost often gets passed along, making imported steel pricier for American businesses and consumers. The main goal of tariffs is to protect domestic industries. By making foreign goods less attractive, tariffs encourage people to buy locally made products, which can help support local jobs and businesses. But there's a catch. Higher import costs usually mean higher prices for everyone. Everyday items like cars, appliances, and even houses can become more expensive, affecting family budgets across the country. While tariffs can help certain industries survive tough competition, they also act as a hidden tax on consumers and businesses that rely on imported goods or materials. And it doesn't stop there. When one country imposes tariffs, others often respond with their own, leading to trade wars. This can hurt exporters, like American farmers, who suddenly find it harder to sell their products overseas. What starts as protection for one sector can ripple through the entire economy, raising costs, reducing competitiveness, and sometimes even leading to job losses in other areas. The central dilemma is clear. Tariffs may save some jobs in protected industries, but they risk higher prices and lost markets for others, making it a tough balancing act for policymakers. In today's global economy, these policies create a complex web of winners and losers, affecting everything from local businesses to international relations. That's why understanding tariffs is so important, especially as the Supreme Court weighs decisions that could shape trade policy for years to come. The debate over tariffs is really a debate over who pays the price and who stands to benefit, in a world where every trade decision has far-reaching consequences. The Trump administration broke with decades of free trade, using tariffs as a weapon against what it called unfair practices, especially by China. By invoking IEPA, a law meant for emergencies, the White House bypassed Congress to impose tariffs on hundreds of billions in imports. The aim forced China to negotiate on intellectual property and subsidies. While some U.S. industries welcomed protection, many manufacturers and farmers suffered from higher costs and retaliatory tariffs. For families, this meant higher prices at the checkout. The strategy triggered a costly trade war, with no easy resolution in sight. The gamble that economic pain would yield better deals for America. Instead, it sparked legal and economic backlash that led to the Supreme Court's rebuke. The legal fight began with businesses, large and small, challenging the president's use of IEPA for tariffs. They argued this sidestepped Congress's constitutional authority over trade. Lower courts agreed, ruling that IEPA wasn't meant for broad tariffs, but for targeted sanctions in true emergencies. The Supreme Court affirmed, the president's powers are significant, but not limitless. Using IEPA for tariffs was an unconstitutional infringement on Congress's power to regulate commerce. The decision draws a clear line. Emergency powers can't be used to create sweeping trade regimes. The judiciary has reasserted the separation of powers at the heart of American government. The Supreme Court's ruling blocks IEPA as a tool for tariffs, but leaves Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act untouched. IEPA is for emergencies, freezing assets, not managing trade. Section 232, by contrast, allows tariffs for national security after a formal investigation. The administration can still use Section 232 to justify tariffs, especially on steel and aluminum. The legal foundation for these tariffs remains solid, so expect continued reliance on national security arguments. The path for broad, unilateral tariffs is closed, but targeted protectionism remains possible. The Biden administration responded swiftly, vowing to keep tariffs central to trade policy. Officials pledged to use all available tools, pivoting to Section 232 for new investigations on products from pharmaceuticals to trucks. Critics argue this stretches the definition of national security, risking further legal and international disputes. The administration's stance sets up a new clash between executive power and judicial oversight. Congress may now face pressure to clarify or limit the president's trade authority. The fight over who controls trade policy is far from over. The White House is determined to defend American industries even as legal challenges loom. The next chapter in the trade war will be written in both courts and Congress. The Supreme Court's decision brings immediate relief to companies relying on imports, as goods begin to flow more freely through American ports. Businesses that depend on global supply chains can now plan with greater certainty, reducing delays and unexpected costs. This shift is already lowering costs and could soon translate into lower prices for consumers at the checkout counter, making everyday essentials more affordable for millions of families. However, domestic industries that were once shielded by tariffs now face renewed foreign competition, putting pressure on less efficient producers to adapt or risk being left behind in a rapidly changing market. American consumers stand to benefit most from these changes, as increased competition can drive innovation and improve product quality. Lower tariffs mean cheaper goods and more purchasing power for households. Retailers gain flexibility to offer a wider range of products, and shoppers may notice more choices on store shelves. Families could see prices drop on everything from electronics to appliances, making big-ticket purchases more accessible. The agricultural sector, battered by years of retaliatory tariffs, could regain lost export markets if trade tensions ease, offering hope to rural communities hit hardest by the trade war. However, industries that depended on tariff protection may see job losses and shrinking profits, forcing some companies to restructure or close altogether. The ruling fundamentally reshapes the economic landscape, shifting the balance of power between sectors and regions. It creates new winners and losers, as some businesses thrive while others struggle to adjust. The hope is for a more competitive, less distorted marketplace that rewards efficiency and innovation. But the risk remains: renewed volatility for vulnerable sectors and uncertainty for workers whose jobs are at stake. The fallout from this decision will ripple through the American economy for years to come, shaping the future of industries, communities, and families across the nation. The Supreme Court's decision signals a shift away from unpredictable, unilateral trade actions. Allies may welcome a return to more stable, rules-based negotiations, but U.S.-China tensions remain unresolved as the administration pivots to other legal tools. The ruling puts Congress back at the center of trade policy, challenging lawmakers to reclaim their constitutional role. Expect debates over reforming Section 232 and redefining presidential authority. The era of unchecked executive power on trade may be ending. The future will demand more collaboration between Congress, the President, and global partners. America's approach to trade is entering a new, more complex chapter.